Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to Jim's 5 a.m. Club. This morning I come to you from an overcast Sydney morning. It's spring here in Sydney, and as we've said before time and time again, the beauty of springtime is it does bring a variability to our weather, which makes it interesting on a day-by-day basis. It'll start off overcast today, and no doubt that cloud will get blown away, and it will pick up and improve and turn into another beautiful spring day. Anyway, how beautiful is it here? I'm at a nice little vantage point, and I get to see the glow of the sunrise. The sun is now above those clouds, but it was beautiful a little earlier. I missed it. Sun's rising at the moment at about 5:38, which is just before I get into the city. So I'll need to leave home earlier if I want to get the sunrise. I don't know if you can see there, but on the water there's a couple of kayakers. And what there is there's a team, or there's a few teams here in Sydney that do kayaking cruises on Sydney Harbour, and you get to go out, paddle away in the kayak and get some beautiful selfies with the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, and all the other beautiful monuments that we have here in Sydney. You've got Fort Denison over there. You could most certainly get photos with Fort Denison in the background as well. So I'd love to do that one day, and I plan to. And I recommend to everybody to put that on their to-do list, to come out in Sydney Harbour on a still day like today, a beautiful morning, and get some wonderful photos and create some memories with your friends and family. Anyway, got a ferry just going around the bend there. It's the Charlotte. The Charlotte's doing its morning run, and it's just swinging there into that sunrise or into that morning glow. How beautiful would it be to be on that Charlotte at the moment? So what are we going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen, on this cloudy overcast day? What I want to do is touch on a subject today which I've got near and dear to my heart, and it's the subject of learned helplessness, a condition that many people suffer, and many people are not aware that they are suffering from learned helplessness, but it's something which has happened over time, and many people are not aware how it happened and how they got there, but they know that they're stuck in that place where they just feel helpless and unable to do anything, even the most simplest of tasks. And COVID-19 at the moment is something which is causing this grief amongst many people, because what COVID-19 is doing is it's placing unreal restrictions and limitations on people, turning social beings, social people, into recluses, people who become or are becoming socially awkward and unable to function at a social level because they are caught up in a tough place where they can't really express themselves freely and be who they are. We've got the Supply coming in. That's the ferry there. The small ferry is called the Supply, heading into Circular Quay to kick off its morning. How beautiful is that? And many years ago I went to a seminar, or I read it in a book, about a metaphor which talks about this learned helplessness. And it's basically a way that we get conditioned. The psychologists will talk about conditioning. There's positive conditioning and there's also negative conditioning. So what we'll focus on today is the things that happen in our lives which cause negative conditioning. Let's go for a bit of a walk and talk. If you hear a splash, it means it'll fall in the water. But I'll just try and get around this sign. Here we go, I'm right. So the analogy that I'll use, and I'll use two analogies and two metaphors. I remember when I was young and at school, I remember learning about Pavlov's dog in science. And Pavlov's dog is basically talks about how we are conditioned to respond to certain conditions that are anchored over a period of training. So Pavlov's dog basically is the story about how a scientist, Pavlov, made an observation that before he'd feed his dog, he'd bring out the food, and the dog would increase its attention span and wag its tail and then start salivating. And he was able to understand and learn and document that by certain stimuluses you could get certain responses from people or from animals, and Pavlov's dog was one of those first stimulus response observations that were made in modern science. But another one that I've come across, which is very, very powerful and resonates very strongly with me, is the story about the elephant trainers. And they talk about how to restrain and how to make an elephant feel and obey to its restraints, given that it's such a big, massive animal, and if let untethered could cause a lot of damage, especially in a garden. So what the authors of this book talked about was in order to train an elephant, and for that elephant to be obedient, what the trainers would do is take an elephant from a very young age and tie its leg to a stake which is driven deeply into the ground to make sure that it is immovable, and that baby elephant is tied to that stake for long periods of time. And even though the elephant wants to move and to be free and to socialise and walk around, every time it tries to move, it is hindered by this stake in the ground and can't go anywhere until that stake is released from its back leg. So this conditioning, this training happens over a period of time until it gets to the point where it becomes a conditioned element in the elephant's mind and in the elephant's life, where the elephant starts to then not question its freedom, and every time it decides to move, it is once again hindered and reminded that it is tied to a stake. So remembering that when the elephant is young, it's tied to a stake which is buried deep into the ground, and the elephant's leg is tied by a thick, strong chain which the elephant can't break free from. So just like the opera house here is restricted and limited by this viewpoint, the elephant as well is restricted in its movement because of that big stake driven deep into the ground and that big chain tied around its leg. But this is where the story gets easier or changes. As the elephant grows and grows and grows, it gets to a point where it could easily pull up the stake in the ground by just one tug of its massive leg, and the stake would just pop out of the ground and the elephant would be free to roam and to do whatever it wanted. But because of that early conditioning and those anchors that have been set in its mind, in its behaviour, the elephant learns to be helpless and no longer questions the rope that is tied around its leg, and just obeys to its mindset, obeys to its memory, and obeys to the rules that have been imposed upon it. And as the elephant gets older and older, it still remembers and it still sticks to those restrictions, and the elephant trainers then just need to tie a small rope to its leg and put a small stake in the ground, a stake that could quite easily, as we said before, be pulled up and removed. But that elephant is now conditioned, it's learned to be helpless, and it has submitted to its training and will never ever be free to do as it wants, because it's learned, it's a learned condition. It's learned to be helpless, it's learned to be hopeless, and it's learned to depend on other people for its freedom and for its next steps. And that's it. So basically, how do we use this, young people? You got to understand that everything that happens around you is a conditioned response. There are people who are trying to train you all the time, be it your parents, be it your teachers, be it your employers, be it your peers, be it your friends. You're being trained constantly through stimulus and response, through reward and punishment. And it's important just to be aware that you are part of an experiment that everybody is performing around you, and to not be limited by their exploits and their experimenting, and to know that you are always free to do as you please, when you please, how you please, as long as you understand that there are conditions attached to it. But once you know that you are free, then that is most liberating and a wonderful thing to remember and to consider. So enjoy your freedom. Don't be tied to a post just because it happened in the past. Don't ever think that the ball is never in your court. The ball is always in your court, and you are always in a position to smash a return and to respond in kind to whatever decision you've made. You're not limited in any way to what other people want you to be limited to. You have the ability to shine, to move, to grow, develop, and do all the things that you're destined to do. Anyway, let's finish up with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I'm well, and I feel great. To my friends and family, stay well, stay connected, stay relevant, and most importantly, stay free. Don't be tied to a stake that is not designed by you. Remembering that we can design our own stakes to limit what we do in our lives, as long as it's something which is part of our plan and not something which is somebody else's plan. Yasas, take care, and until we chat again, I'll be back here tomorrow, 5 a.m. on Jim's 5 a.m. Club. Don't know where I'll be filming the episode tomorrow, but I hope to bring an interesting element to this beautiful city of Sydney, and to come to you with another empowering message, a lesson that we can share, and something that we can both use for our growth and constant development, our perpetual development, our perpetual growth, and something that'll hold us in good stead for today and well into the future. Remember, live, learn and pass it on. Don't hog it, pass it on and support everybody around you. Yasas, bye for now.